Greetings, greetings, family. We are live. Welcome, welcome to the Sister Shanice Show, where we have an absolutely fantastic show lined up for you. Certainly hope that you're going to be spreading the word and letting your family and friends know about this fantastic, bombastic, blacktastic platform that we have here. So I'm just making the connections. We're spinning. I should be live. So yes, I can see myself on YouTube. We are indeed live. And as you can see, I've got my guest in the house, none other than Paul Abina. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. I won't do the introductions of you just yet because I want to give our audience time to come through the door. So as our audience is coming through the door, those who are already in the house, I just want to rise you up. I had some notes here from earlier and I'm like, yeah, I used that for my show earlier today. And I just like the way it drops. So I thought, let me drop it here for you all this evening. So welcome to those of you who are watching us from various parts of the world. We thank you so much for joining us. As you can see, my back screen is reflective of what we're going to be discussing here today. We have a historian in the house. We have an awesome researcher in the house, author in the house. And yeah, he's going to be taking us through, about 8,000 years. We're going to skim because 8,000 years is obviously a long time. A long time. So we're going to be skimming over some of our history. He's got a presentation lined up for us as well. So put the words out, let everybody know that we are actually in the house, that we are live. I will be going back behind the screen in a little while. When my guest is talking, just to post the links out to family and friends. So I just want to rise up, all of you mighty warriors out there, you mighty conscious people, want to rise you all up. To those of you who are using your skills and talents to contribute towards the movement, to contribute towards the upliftment of us as a people, I rise you up. To those of you who are taking advantage of the technology that we have at the moment as well, to do the research, to find out about our greatness, to find out about our kingdoms, our cities and our empires that existed and were in full glory prior to their invasions, and telling the children the story of all of those. We rise you up. I've got a little quote here, and it said, and my brother might even remember where it comes from. It says that when visitors came to see us in Africa, they said that they saw great states, well ordered, down to the most minute detail. Now, if we've got states, and if we had states that were well ordered right down to the most minute detail, doesn't that mean, my brother, we must have had great civil engineers, we must have had great builders, great architects, we must have been well organized, we must have been working together to achieve common goals. I mean, my brother Paul, what do you think it takes to have a well-organized state, which is what they saw when they visited our kingdoms? What does it take?
It's the way that you're educated, you're developed, it's culturalized, it's your psychology. It goes all in. And having just come back from Egypt and look at the remnants of Kemet, it's clear that there was a phenomenal amount of ingenuity, understanding in what was built and what was maintained. And yeah, the unity with nature was the first order of the day. You have to understand the natural world and how you fit in with it. And I think that's been lost to a large extent because we live in these caves now, etc., and got central heating and whatever. Even though the good Tory party is actually cutting it, so we have to go more natural now because we can't have the heating on all the time.
Wow. How are people going to manage in this country? Cold winter.
Hardcore. You know, I've got to say, I've started the cold showers off and all of this business, and getting ready. Going to get hardy again. I'm going to start getting those aspects going on. So yeah.
Those of you who are not living in the UK and may not be aware of what we're talking about here, wow, it's going absolutely crazy. The cost of fuel bills skyrocketing, along with the profits that I'm seeing that these energy companies are making off of the backs of our hardship. Wow. I mean, they're talking about millions in profit. And people, they're saying, can expect to get fuel bills on average of about £3,000 per annum, which is just absolutely crazy. So my brother's Paul's saying he's practicing cold showers from now.
So and hate that red dot. Don't feed the red dot, because every time it's on, it's consuming.
Yes,
and so, you know, leaving. I can remember I remember a girlfriend of mine's cousin used to leave the cold tap running all the time in summer so he could have cold water.
Wow.
And I used to say to him, I said, are you nuts? But that's how he thought that was just the way to be. So he'd just be wasting water. So yeah, it's some people got a mentality. So if it's you know, if you've got that red dot, I shut everything off at night. I don't have anything on in any of the electrical points on, so that I don't want to consume what I'm not using.
This is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to be more efficient in the way that we use energy and in the way that we use the whole range of you know, things that we've been taking for granted, even water that we never used to have to pay for before, we are having to pay for now. So lots of changes happening. So just sending out some posts there, letting people know that we are live, and just want to welcome those of you who are already in the house and through the door. Let me just go over to the audience and take a look and see who we've got in our house. Hey, all right, rise up. Our brother Ian Williams in the house. Welcome. Brother Kimani in the house. Welcome. Sister Afri Jamo, we welcome you all the way from Ghana. Kimani, welcome. Oh, we've got Sister Verna in the house. Did I see Sister Verna? We've got Brother Gebra in the house. We've got Kem in the house. So family, in case you're wondering why I'm calling certain names, just make sure that you're tuned in, that you're logged in to your YouTube account, and then you'll be able to communicate with us via the chat. Imhotep, welcome. Black Beauty, always welcome. Oh, wonderful families coming through the door. Yes, Sister Verna in the house, Brother Gary in the house. Oh, thank you. Okay, right, so the family's coming through the door. Those who are here nice and early, we certainly don't want to keep them waiting. And I know that we've got an action-packed show today, as always. And so we're going to be kicking off in a moment or two, just going to find out a little bit in a little while about our wonderful guest who we have that's going to be presenting to us today. So get your pens ready, get your notepads ready, because I want to get some questions from you, audience members, at the end. And I also want to ensure that, you know, you're making notes so that you can ask some questions, make some comments as we go along. As you can see from my background, oh, wow. Some of our awesome, wonderful kings and queens, but I don't know how it's coming out for you, but it's looking back to front for me. No, I can see it's coming out okay. Yeah, so you can see the names of some of those African kings in times gone by. If you don't know them, get to know, put their names in Google, do the research, find out their stories and share them with your brothers and sisters. And if you haven't got this particular scroll. You need to get it. It's written by our guest, Paul Urbina, and it is a very huge scroll that goes on and will go, cover your wall. And it's all about our history, loads of it. So if you want to know, what to get so that, you could be better informed about our history, this is one of the scrolls and documents that you absolutely need to get. And I've had a few books that have come through in the last sort of month or two that I'm going to share with you. This one here from MFIT, our very own sister, Dr. Marie Charles, one of her books that looks in particular at the link between Africa and Ireland. Just in case you didn't know that Africans were the first people to populate Ireland, get that book if you want to know more information about our presence in Ireland and the British Isles. Get this book here, The Negro Question Part 4, The Missing Link. Wow, wow, wow. You will be blown away by this, family. I'm going to have to take some nuggets out of it for some future presentations. Also, a quickie, 100 amazing facts about the Negro with complete proof, okay? So for those people who like to make sure that they've got evidence, you can get that one. Can't forget our very own Dr. Clyde Winters, Blacks in Europe. Okay, make sure you get that one. And also another one of his, the Ancient Black Civilization of Asia. All right, so those are a few of the books that I'm working my way through so that when we come with the knowledge and information, we come correct. So, okay, so make sure you've got a note of those books and that you're doing a reading as well, family. Okay, right. I think I've given our audience enough time to come through the door. So now over to the exciting part of the show. Let me introduce to you, by way of a little conversation, our beloved brother, Paul Urbina. I've got his bio here, and I can see, Paul, that you were actually born in Preston and raised in Blackburn in Lancashire. And I can see that you were officially adopted into a local white family. And I want you to tell us, what was life like, as a child of mixed parentage, living in that particular home that you were adopted into with a white mother and father?
Home was cool. Outside of the home, not so cool. I was born in '59, and so therefore I was raised in the 1960s when there's no political correctness. And so I became a fighter, even though I wasn't that way naturally, I didn't think. But yeah, it was pretty rough.
Wow. So it was rough. I can see here that you encountered quite a lot of racial bias, physical and mental hostility as a child. And, we've had a couple of shows here where we've raised matters concerning some of our young people who have experienced, physical racism. One resulted in a child actually losing their life. Another resulted in a child losing a finger. These are serious incidences. The child had lost his life. He was pushed into the water and drowned. And so this is how cruel racism can be, even, towards children. You lived through it. You lived through it, my brother.
So, but it's all I knew. So I had no one around to compare notes with until I was, I met Albert Coker when I was around about 13, 14 playing football. So he was the other mixed race guy, and we looked alike. And so, in fact, we were born a day apart, it turned out. But yeah, it just like, there were 7 of us out of a town of 155,000.
Wow.
Mixed race guys. And so we were split between schmoozers and fighters, and I was on the fighting side. Albert was a schmoozer. So
what's a smoother?
Schmoozer, chatting,
Okay.
chirpsing.
Okay.
Yeah, chirpser. So yeah, that was it. So my own thing, you know, I wasn't for making people laugh or whatever. And I was like very serious kind of guy. And I was took under the wing of a guy called Seymour, who was he's like about maybe 5 years older than me. And he was crazy. But I was put into martial arts, you see. So that was my savior.
Right. And did you learn martial arts because you felt you needed to be able to defend yourself?
No, it's to calm me off.
Okay, yes, you could get rid of all of your aggression.
Yeah,
Wow.
you could beat people up legitimately and be kind of all right. So it was like that, and I'd sooner children be that way. So you have to temper them. There's if you talk about hardening and tempering steels, I was a metallurgist for a while, metallurgy apprentice. So you harden and temper steels to get them to the right quality, and so I'd sooner have people who you have to temper and calm off than try and build in confidence, if you see what I'm saying.
Right,
But
right.
so yeah, it's my I have a boy who's 13 and he's kind of, we're doing a tempering job with him. So it's a thing that's there. So I think that being able to defend yourself is a very important facet, and that, as Malcolm said, by any means necessary, whether it be verbally, spiritually, physically, it doesn't matter. You defend yourself, how to be able to defend yourself.
Absolutely. And I can see here that, you know, the racism started as a child from, you know, you were the age of 4, you know, being the only child of color in the school where you were, right up to the age of 11 and experiencing, you know, racism from fellow 4-year-old pupils. Who would think that, you know, children of 4 could actually, you know, be racist? But that was your experience.
No, but they're repeating things that their parents will say and whatever. And it was a great thing for me because 2 days after my 4th birthday, I started school. And this boy threatened to stab me with his petty knife.
Wow.
And said that, called me a black bastard for going up the slide in front of him. Now, when I went home to ask my mom, she said, "You're not black, you're golden brown. And you're half English and you're half African." So African for me from the age of 4 was something that was constructive. But when I was 15 and I met people from the Caribbean who were denying their African heritage, I didn't get it. And then when Roots came out, Good Friday 1977, I had a massive argument with my girlfriend's brother, because he said he wasn't no African. So I was like, I was saying, "So what are you, an Arawak?" He's Jamaican. I said, "You're an Arawak with a Scottish name." So I used to call him Mac Arawak, you know. And yeah, I didn't get it. I never did get it. I said, "But you are what you are." But mentally, we can become anything we want to be and whatever. As we're seeing now with, you know, gender identity, etc., and the issues that are out and about now. We can become anything we want. But in the Black community, that's been going on for how long?
As you know, evidence of the extent to which, you know, we've been miseducated within the education system, the extent to which a colonial education really has brainwashed large numbers of our community to not even.
I don't think we've been miseducated. I think they've deliberately, that's a deliberate state of being that we're in. So it's not a miseducation. I know Carter Woodson, who I love, did miseducation of the Negro, but it was, no, we're in an educated state, and that's exactly how we're meant to be.
It's by design, are you saying? The education that we're being given.
Well, if you think about it, if you were self-determined and like Indian people are, Chinese people are, they've not gone through the same level of displacement. Indian people, 42 million deaths from the time the British arrived, etc. But they've got on with what they're getting on with. and Chinese as well. You don't need Chinese. I don't know one Chinese MP, and I don't hear the Chinese community clamoring on about, you know, racism and you know, things against them or whatever. They get on with their business. And
wow, you're opening up a big debate there, my brother Paul. So what do you know, it's difficult to compare because obviously we're not comparing like for like, you know, they've still got their culture, they've got their religion, they've got, you know, the
intact.
Yeah, they're very much, you know, intact, whereas we have been displaced, we're scattered all over the world, knowledge of our history, we've been detached from our culture, our heritage, our lineage, you know, we're not growing up knowing it. So we can go on about our history and a lot, but the reality is that still many of our people, especially of our young people, don't even know their African roots.
Well, the thing is about I don't see many Chinese people walking around with books teaching them about being Chinese. They have their own agendas. They have their own reality. And they're very kind of closed off as well. So I can go to a village in Devon and there'll be a Chinese takeaway there. And they go where they go and just keep themselves on and that's it. They're not facing the same racism, and then there's not the same relationship of enslavement and colonization that happened. And we've got to remember as well that for 1,000 years before Europeans arrived, Arabs and then in turn Turkish people were practicing trans-Saharan traffic. So it's something that we need to really consider. And it's like tonight, I mean, you talk about the timeline. I just want to, tonight in the time, go through, because the first page of the timeline is always the brain hemispheres. And it's about the brain and the mind. I'm never, I can go I was in Egypt 4 weeks ago on a study tour. And so all these names that are here, I'm going like, that are behind you, I'm going, yeah, and I'm making me smile. It's making me kind of look with that. But I was there with Anthony Browder, and he did Nile Valley Origins of contribution, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And he did a very interesting presentation where he said that those pharaohs, we say must have, might have, or whatever, known that they would have been dug up in thousands of years, and they're blood markers for us to remind us of our greatness, of what we did and what we were capable of. And then when you look at a tomb, I mean, I saw the tomb of Seti I, which is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. The artwork, the sculpture, everything about it was just incredible. And to think that that was done just for his death, etc., there had to be something else going on. And yeah, I looked at these things. There's a very important facet, was the day a pharaoh became pharaoh was the day that he began building his tomb. And that was a reminder for him of his longevity, how long he would live for, and the responsibility of his action, because he was the house housing the aspirations of the people. Now, if you go into Freemasonry, a Freemason in their shrine or their personal space will always have an hourglass to remind themselves of the limited time that you have in this life. Yes, there's the metaphysical quality of longevity, but this thing about how we live our life at this time, that's a reminder of your mortality. So it's a very important facet, and we appreciate that these people who are behind you, these were the kind of practices that they had.
Yeah, indeed. And so we ask ourselves, even of us, what is our legacy going to be? What is the legacy that we're going to be leaving behind for future generations to come, to know, what we did during our time here? All right. So I could spend the whole show just talking about you and your experience from, your bio. And there is so much, you do so much wonderful work.
Let me just say something, which is we have an issue about we were kings and queens, but we're also common folk too.
Oh, yes.
And those small contributions go towards the big. At the minute, we've got people pimping us at the top and taking the wealth and generating the wealth because we've been educated into passing over our energy to other people. So I think it's it's an important thing to remember. Yeah, we were kings and queens, but we're common folk too.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. And my brother, you're doing works in the prisons at the moment. You want to just tell us a little bit about that?
I'm working with a good brother in London called Twilight Bay, down in Wandsworth Prison. He's got some good works going on there, so I come down every 2 weeks to support that work. And then I've been doing some voluntary work with some brothers who are down for life in up here in HMP Garth, and just had an interesting conversation today with a couple of those guys and with some of the people there working with them, the coordinators, and it's a strange thing because some of them done some terrible things, done bad things, but I always remember, forgive this, I was put under the guardianship of Chief Adelikon, who was High Priest of the Oni of Iliafe. Baba once said to me, when I was talking about certain things, they said, Mr. Obina, if you insert your finger into anyone's anus, it will come out smelling. So it's a very practical way of saying certain people think their shit don't stink, you understand me? And that they're better and higher than and whatever. And thankfully, not many people murder in this society, even though if you watch TV, it might look that way.
Yeah.
I've spoken to educators and I've asked them, what's the prison population in the UK? And they've been saying something like, oh, it must be about 5 million, 12 million, 14 million. And then they're kind of aghast when I say, well, roughly it's 93,000. So, and out of that, there's only 6,000 of those are women. So the kind of having the facts is different than having the thing. So Twilight uses a thing we call the TR code, for T. Rogers, is an elder in Los Angeles he worked with. And he always says it's like critical thinking. It says, first of all, if something goes off, eliminate the negative emotions, control the negative emotions, then establish the facts, then choose the best option. And basically, it's a journey from your right hemisphere, the emotive, across to the left hemisphere, and then applying the synthesis of the two. So the people you've got the images of behind, it's clear that they were representative of a society where there were certain balances in there that allowed them to connect with nature, with each other, and perform some absolute miracles. That's in Kemet, but Kemet was the daughter of Ethiopia. So from Central Africa, there must have been some kind of light shining from there that made Kemet what it was.
Yes.
And then another dynamic is the timeline that you're praising there, the timeline I produce of like 8,000 years, it's BS. Because what we have to be looking at is expanded across the new version of the timeline. I've got the zodiacal ages, which is a period of, I use 2,150 years. And so it means that just under, so it's 28,800 years, sorry, 25,800 years, something like that, for a complete 12 cycle. Yeah. They mustn't have been guessing. They must have known about that.
Yes.
Before that.
Yes.
Which means it's 28, 40, 56,000 years that they knew these cycles are going on. And then if you put another on top of it, it goes back to around 80 something thousand. So I've got a thing I call the Book of Dumb, because in my life, and forgive my language, I've done some dumb shit. I've had dumb shit beliefs, dumb shit actions. I've done dumb shit, still do it as well. And one I always remember was the first time I went to Egypt in 1990. I was walking up behind the causeway, behind the Sphinx, and I'm standing there, I start looking around like this. And one of the guys said to me, what are you looking for? I said, the River Nile. He said, River Nile? I said, yeah, the River Nile. You know, the River Nile, Pyramid, Sphinx, River Nile. Freaking, yeah, I'm looking for the River Nile. He said, it's not anywhere near. I said, of course it is. I've seen photographs, man. I said, I've seen the photographs of River Nile, Giza Plateau, the pyramids, Sphinx on the. I said, I've seen it. And he's like, it's not. He said, it's 7 kilometers back in Cairo. I'm going, mother, don't tell me that. I know. I was teaching this stuff, you know. I know, blah, 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 blah. Nah, it's true. 7 kilometers, nowhere near the pyramids. But I'd seen a graphic photograph in a school book.
Looks as though it's on the Nile, doesn't it?
Yeah, so a good picture's worth 1,000 words. And the guy Graham Hancock, the white writer, he said that, yeah, the estimates of when the Nile flowed by the Giza Plateau is about 52,000 years ago.
Wow, really?
So you're talking there. That's why there's a book called Egypt Revisited. I've actually got it here somewhere. And you see the, let me see if I've got it here.
Okay, so while you're looking, let me go over to the chat, and I can see lots of comments going on in the chat there. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, so this book shows the Sphinx with the sea around it.
Yeah.
So when you look at the back, it's got the sea, it's got the Sphinx and the pyramids surrounded by an inland sea.
Right.
So the inference there is that the Sphinx and the pyramids are a whole heap older than 5,000 years. And it's, you know, I'm kind of, I was out there 2 weeks, and I was just walking around like, what? Thankfully, I was looking after a couple of elders, and it's beautiful because I was on wheelchair duty, you know, going into the tombs and the temples, pushing this beautiful lady, 84 years old, with real good spirit. So it slowed me down. It made me look at things and appreciate things more. And I was just, my mind was blown. I've been there before, but I've not been there before, you know? So it's things like that. I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Beautiful.
So the time of everything is just, you know, it's on another level.
Seize the moment. I want to rise up. Jughead, thank you so much for your £5 donation. Much appreciated, love. He says, greetings, Sister Shanice and my African brother, Paul. He said, Sister Shanice, does Brother Paul have any knowledge re the 1.2 billion year old nuclear?
Nuclear?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of that. All that. Brother,
nuclear plant somewhere, or some nuclear reactor, some evidence of some nuclear plant or site.
Look, let me say, you know, for instance, they keep saying that we find these human bones, and they go like, oh, we've discovered human bones, and well, how do we know the human bones are underneath a building that's been built somewhere here, there, or whatever? It's like they talk about these things as though it's an exact science of some way, but they're going to be finding things over and over and over and over all the time, and because layers and whatever. So it's, you know, I mean, that's the thing that was really like bugging me, was that when I was out there, I was looking at these things which are like, what, well, they're dating them 5,000 years, and it looked like they were done last week. Wow. And, you know, I went into one tomb at Saqqara, and these were like images of everyday trade. It was a nobleman who was, that was his tomb, and he had basically what he was dealing with, just They look like they've been done last week.
Wow.
And they still, it was really funny. There's a brother there, Doctor, his name was Doctor, but he was a doctor. So he's Doctor.
Mhm.
And when you looked at where they found things and they washed the color out, but then in certain parts, the color was still there. And the intricacy of doing the locks in the hair of all the figures. And this brother starts, he is going, "You lied to me." And it just started singing at the top of his voice for about 10 minutes. I was just killing myself.
I mean, 50, 100 years time, they would have completely whitewashed, you know, inside those tombs. And our children are going to be having to look for the evidence in terms of the etchings and the carvings and the outlines of the images, you know, to find themselves in it. It's really awful. I've got the rest of Brother Jeff's message here. It says, so it's a 1.2 billion-year-old nuclear reactor that was discovered by a French mining company in Gabon, West Africa, back in 1973.
Okay, I'll definitely have a look for that.
Yeah, we'll all have to look that one up. Yes, rise up, Brother Jeff, and thank you so much for the kind donation as well. Now, I am going to come out of the way because, you know, it's time for our brother Paul Abina to share with us some of his wealth of knowledge that he has been acquiring over the decades. And we're honored to have you as a guest on this platform, my brother. So let me allow you to share screen and step out the way so that you can do your thing. Over to you, my brother.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Play from current slide. Here we go. When I was a small boy, I used to go fishing in streams and, you know, in the locality, catching minnows and sticklebacks and tadpoles and all kinds of stuff. And what was important was that I had a net. And what that net did was allow me to scoop up and catch these fish and then take them home into a tank for a while and, you know, and then go and put them back and whatever. Now, what the idea of the lineage timeline is that it's a net. That's all it is. It's a net, it's a structure to house information. But what I'm going to do tonight is go to the first page of it. Now, this is my logo. It's a hammer and anvil. That's because I'm a child of Ogun in Yoruba tradition, which means I'm a fighter, but I'm also a transmuter. I create and change the state of things. I do this work when I'm teaching. I try my best to help people to transition from one state to another. You'll see across the bottom there, it says alchemic lead, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And so it's a structure that Lineage Innovations. Lineage, of course, is your ancestry and your descendants. Those of you from the Caribbean, you might have heard of a term called obia. And there's a man called Orlando Patterson, did a book called The Sociology of Slavery. And he was looking for the origins of the term obia. But what he did, he went to Ghana and went to West Africa. But he was looking for words that meant witchcraft because he thought the term obia was restricted to the term witchcraft. But if he'd have landed, he did find a term in Ghana, like when you say you want to, you people from Jamaica, you may say something, I would like something finyam. So the term nyamo is, I believe, is a Ghanaian term for meat, means to eat or meat. So if it stopped off in Igbo land, in what's now Eastern Nigeria, Cameroon, you find the term obi, O-B-I, and it was one of the spellings that he had for obia. So O-B-I, O-B-I-A, or O-B-E-A-H. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this at the beginning, my name is Obinna. My father sent the name back for me, Obinna. And that means the heart father, the father's heart. Now, the word itself means heart. So for instance, you got the black heart man, the Obeah man they call the black heart man. So it means heart, wish, home and kindred, chief, lineage, soul, spirit, mind, and shrine house. Now, it's a very deep, not only a deep word, but a deep concept. And all of those things interrelate. But one of the things is we talk about many aspects of culture, but we don't talk about the spiritual, because we've been conditioned to think that our reverence for ancestry is the worshiping of the dead. So they call that that we're necromancers. Necro meaning dead. So necro or negro means dead. So when you got the term nigger, you're going to see it a few times this evening. It actually means dead. It doesn't mean black. It means black, sorry, when it goes into Latin. But the origin of the term ancestral reverence that was always being done in African traditional cultures, they said we were worshiping the dead. And so therefore, when they came along with other religions, it meant that anybody who was practicing traditional African spirituality was considered to be practicing witchcraft, negativity, or whatever. I don't know if you notice that everybody's got a story about someone's third cousin's auntie's friend's lover who was killed by Obeah. But then I could tell God knows how many people has been murdered in the name of Christianity or Islam or whatever. We don't. There's not a rationale there. That's actually being looked at. So I just want to start off with that to say what the timeline. The idea of the timeline is to give the expansion. But I'm gonna explain that very quickly. Oh, by the way, calm, connected consciousness as well. You're not going to find me starting shouting the odds and everything, because I'm a quiet, humble kind of old man now. Now I've got old, and people who know me know that I'm very passive and nice. I'm like a teddy bear now these days, you know. I'm all like, I have my moments and everything, but I want to be able to be calm and then connected with what I'm doing and getting that consciousness there. And let me tell you, as a fighter, you got to be calm, even under pressure. You understand me? That's otherwise we make slip-ups and whatever. And I'm praying and hoping that or the people I know don't make those things. So calm, connected consciousness is what I prefer to be dealing with. I don't start shouting down white man, Asian man, that, and all this business. I don't do angry really. Try not to anyway, unless it's needed. So an introduction to the timeline. This is alchemic. It's called lead and bronze. You'll see it, the logos at the bottom. They'll either be general, this green color at the bottom, or it's going to be the lead and the bronze. And this is a lead or bronze presentation. So I'm giving you a kind of introduction. Now, the reason, the first page of the timeline, whichever version, it's always going to be this. You see, I was teaching for about 4 years in Manchester before I realized I'd never been taught about how my brain works. And even though I'd done communication studies for my A level, when I returned to education to become a teacher, I'd never been taught about the brain. The closest I'd ever got is through my martial arts. And so and the closest in the martial arts was a work of Bruce Lee and Sterling Silliphant in the film called Enter the Dragon, when he's talking about emotional content. So those who are martial artists, this is the first thing, or not, if you're not a martial artist, your first piece of homework, watch Enter the Dragon, watch right at the beginning, and make sure you've got a copy of a chakra poster, and I want you to screen it, look at it, and check the colors that are on display throughout the first fight and the opening few scenes. And there's one thing I'm going to go and tell you now. At that fight, the high priest is watching Bruce Lee fight Sammo Hung. Sammo Hung's like a tubby guy. In actual fact, I used to think I looked more like Bruce. Now I look more like Samo in my shape. So I'm a bit kind of pissed at that, but never mind. So what happens is the high priest is watching the fight. He's dressed in orange, and orange is the color of the sacral chakra. Now, as you would call somebody an Oreo or coconut in the black community, brown outside, white inside, in what would it be in Chinese? What's yellow outside and white inside? Banana.
Oh, right. Yes.
And next to the high priest is a bowl of fruit with these bananas clear. The fingers of the bananas are clearly seen. But when Bruce defeats Sammo Hung, it goes back to a shot of the high priest, and there's a 180-degree turn, and you can't see the bananas anymore, because Bruce was representing the fit, healthy, tuned in, switched on Chinese consciousness, whereas Sammo was the opium-affected fat boy. Sorry for those who've got body weight. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say anything bad there. The opium-addicted fat boy who's put on his back and made to tap out. Please watch the film. There's all kinds of stuff. Then watch as well the color brown and white, because the brown is the color of opium. White is the refined opium. Enter the Dragon is all about the heroin that was flooded into the United States of America. That's what the film was about, which is why Jim Kelly was sent by the Black Karate Association, who he goes into the gym and they're drilling. He was their secret agent going to stop the importation. But there's a story behind it. It's meant to be a guy called Rodney Tartington was meant to play the role. And what happened was Rodney Tartington got into a contractual dispute and they got rid of him, and Bruce Lee brought in Jim Kelly to play the role instead. And what happened was he was not meant to die in the film. He was meant to be fighting alongside Bruce at the end. It's a travesty of justice, I tell you. But what I'm telling you is that watch the film. Emotional content is teaching the young boy Lao. And our young people need to have emotional literacy. They need to have self-control, which is why the ancients gave one of the oldest statues there is, called Heru Emaket, Horus on the horizon, also known as the Sphinx. And that is the body of the lion and the human head atop of it, talking about we must transcend the bestial aspects of our nature and control ourselves. And that's one of the things when I'm working in the prisons, that's what I'm trying to promote, along with Twilight Bay, my brother there. And we put in the, and all the other, call out Dr. Les Henry, call out Trevor Hakim, all the people doing all the work, Andrew Mahal, all the blah, 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 everybody. We got self-control and focus is what we need to be having, which is why they told us about Heru and the original hero. So it's that kind of information that I'm wanting to get going. And tonight we're going to be looking at the role of the brain mind at the beginning of the timeline, the first page. That's all we're going to do tonight. I'm sorry. Go on, if you want to time travel, do that thing. Go. You can get everything online, or go on a trip to Kemet, or go on a trip to West Africa and wherever we're from. It don't matter. You go and do those things. The brain is like the earth, as both have hemispheres. What happens in the brain, we call the mind. And what happens on the earth, we call the world. And guess what? Therefore, whomever controls the mind controls the world. Mm-hmm. So why do you think it is they don't teach you about the brain in school? Why do you think that they don't have charts up just saying, oh, when you're doing this? That's what I used to do. And I am a horrible person. A horrible teacher. In fact, I'm meeting these guys I used to teach 47 years old in Manchester in the Moss side. And they come to you, we hated you when we were at school. Oh, no. We hated your guts. Because you know why? I used to cut the ring off. I've got a friend, Lance, he might be listening tonight. Lance Lewis. We would teach him, but we're both boxers, martial artists. Lance is like world championship level and whatever. But cutting the ring off, that's what I did with classes of children. And I gave them no space whatsoever to mess around. First time in their life for a lot of them. So you see, that thing about self-control, mind control, very, very important. Very important. they didn't teach you about the brain. When I got into this thing, I had the chart up on and then I'd stop a class. I'd just go, oh, you, which hemisphere of the brain are we using now? So they got a 50-50 guess. Got it wrong, 10-minute detention.
Oh no.
Sir, man, you want more? Shut up. And then the next thing I'll be saying to them, oh yeah, what then? If they got there, I say, what aspects of the brain? So one of those qualities that were there, I was drilling into them through fear and intimidation. But I was teaching them about their brain, about their brain. You had to get on that. So why was I doing that? Because whoever controls their mind will control their world. And your world can be your family, it can be your friends, your community, it can be your workplace, etc., etc. It don't matter. That's what this is about. And the role of the timeline is to take us from this misinformed, lacking of knowledge, etc., to a more expansive way of thinking. Just let me show you this quick. Molefi Santi calls the twin pillars of consciousness. And you'll see here, to the left, we have the lotus column. To the right, we have the papyrus column. So we're talking about upper and lower Kemet. We're talking about the harpy tying the two together and getting the synthesis together. We need both. But watch this now. Consciousness towards our oppression is necessary if we're going to defend ourselves in certain scenarios. But there's also consciousness towards our victory. And so we need to have this. I like to stress this. I did a presentation at Temple University for Dr. Kimani Nahusi, and Dr. Asante was there. And I said to them, I told her, every time I start a presentation, I start with this, because many of us, it's like poverty versus wealth, violence versus peace, lack versus abundance, disease versus health, misery versus happiness, failure versus success. Which is generally portrayed or nurtured as being black. We got the blues. We got to be shifting ourselves over into the red in a good sense. I'm not meaning at the bank, of course. I'm talking getting into the red and getting that gold. And then what it means is that we apply ourselves and shift ourselves consciously where we need to be. And maybe we need to be in a balance of the two so we know what move to make. Please have a look at the word misery, because it says miser and why. Miser, why? What's a miser? Someone who refuses to let go. And generally, I can sit around with people who claim to be conscious and all they do is go on and on and on and on and on about what's wrong, not how we're going to make it right. And so I've got to appreciate where that's coming from, but I've also got to act on something more constructive and positive. CTV, CTO, consciousness towards victory, consciousness towards oppression. CTV or CTO. I'm hoping that tonight, when we finish this, you'll be going, I've just been a CTV.
Oh, yeah.
You understand me? That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. The alchemic structure is like this. Alchemy is a medieval forerunner of chemistry. Alchemy, it means of the Black Land. Alchemy is of the Black Land. So chemistry, chemet. So alchemy is a medieval forerunner of chemistry concerned with the transmutation of matter. So it's the change that we need to be involved in particular with attempts to convert base metals from lead into gold, or the finding of a universal elixir. So basically, this is a metaphysical process. So what do we have here? Lead is a foundation. You'll see that there's a symbol there. It's called a decagon, and it represents what I call the corral. So this is where history lies. And what we do, we look at the brain hemispheres. You've got to know the brain hemispheres to show the game that's been played to keep us down, below the ground. And there's the ground level. This is the foundation. And please, you know something? I've said this to certain people, that you'll find that in undertakers driving a hearse are not allowed to go below the ground in a tunnel, like underground tunnels, because the body can only go under once it's been buried. And once you remember that they called us Negro, Necro, Nigger, which means dead. So they want to keep us down here. They want to keep us in this state of consciousness towards oppression, below the ground, so we're not going to flourish. One of the titles given to people of African descent was children of the sun, because you're melanated. You're meant to be out in the daylight, not at nighttime. But this is, and remember the word night, nicht, N-I-G, same root word. So these are the dynamics that we need to be aware of. We had to go to the bronze. At this level is what I call history with a Y. Why does history, can I spell? Yes, I can. Why? Why? Because hist means womb. And you'll see on the timelines, there's a yellow line goes down right across the timeline, the most important line on the timeline, because that represents the mitochondrial DNA that's held by our mothers. That's why every birthday is Mother's Day. That's why Osset had the crown, Isis Osset had the crown upon her head, the throne crown, representing the generational power that we in West Africa would call Sankofa. Go back and why is that Sankofa bird has an egg in its mouth? Who carries the egg? The women carry the egg. And so therefore, that's why we need to be having reverence. Every birthday is Mother's Day. We need to be bringing those factors in and celebrating the generative power of women. That is actually the reality. No one's here without it. So what do we have here? It's a lineage timeline to expand consciousness, to take us out, and this is all be stressing, take us out of this enslaved and colonized mentality. Silver is a healing level. I keep meeting a lot of people, they've read a lot of books and whatever, the life is still a mess. And I'm no exception to that, I've got to say. But then the healing side of it all, getting into the, because you can't go through 400 years of enslavement or 1,400 years of enslavement, which had every form of abuse involved in it, and then you be all right. Yeah, oh, I've not been touched by that. So hell, you need to be getting some of that healing done by any means. And I'm so pleased, and I'm hearing different people now going into that branch of activity. Then gold is a Sphinx level, self-control and focus. I need you to take a reference down for the Kabbalion, written by the three initiates. Please have a look at that, Hermetic principles for Hermes Trismegistus, or as we would call Tehuti or Thoth. So please take a note, have a look at that. The Sphinx, by the way, when I was down in Giza the other week, for the first time, I went to the temple of the Sphinx, so-called, and as you pass through the door, the portal, and you go up, you open onto the Giza plateau, and the Sphinx is right by you. You go out and the Sphinx is right by there. That the Sphinx is the guardian to the higher levels. And that self-control and focus is the guardian to the higher levels, the control and the focus. That's why the eyes of Heru are used, the right eye, left eye are used symbolically as well for analysis and reflection, then action. So the application of this kind of stuff we read about and wearing symbols and all that business, there's some very practical things we need to be applying so that we can finally get up to this platinum level where basically it's the natural you. What do I teach at that level? Absolutely nothing, none of my goddamn business. That's your personal drive to get to the higher level, whatever means you're going to get there. So all it is that we need to get there. So it's about what's the best way to travel to London? Is it train, coach, car, bus, walking, cycling, flying? Which one is it? As long as we get to the destination, that's the main thing. And have a look at Bruce Lee when he says, don't concentrate on the finger or you'll miss all the heavenly glory. That's it. Watch that Enter the Dragon, please, at the beginning. Lead level, corral explained. This is a corral, an enclosure for horses, cattle, etc. An enclosure for capturing wild animals. A state of unconsciousness produced to maintain a restricted, confused, and dehumanized mentality. A decagon, a 10-sided shape, a symbol representing the time capture of decade, century, and millennium. We are kept, they keep us into the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or the 70s or the 90s. We kept into those decades. And then, oh, it's centuries ago. Oh, it's this, that ago, and whatever. And we give it, and then many people don't even understand about those structures and how they're laid out, etc. That's what the timeline's about, is giving that information, all that basic information. We go to the corral. What's in the corral? Race, gender, class, politics, war, sex, sexuality, slavery, economics, history, law, entertainment, capitalism, religion, socialism, poverty, disease, fear, colonialism, and failure. These are all the issues, or some of the issues that we're being hit with all the time. And then someone comes up, look at this, it's terrible. Slavery, we've got to look at enslavement. No, no, no. And then next minute, well, we're going to look at the law because the law that, no, it's poverty. We need to do all the ideas to keep us trapped, running from pillar to post within that structure. And so therefore, there's another level I go with this, but this is just the basic thing. When I'm talking about the foundation level, this is what we're talking about. You see, the process demands this. Dehumanization requires rehumanization. We've been dehumanized by enslavement and colonization. We need to be rehumanized. Well, do you know something? Try this. Write in, if you've got something with a spell checker, write in dehumanization, then change the D to an R for rehumanization, and it'll underline it as wrong. You get the red wavy line. You'll get rehumanized, but a process called rehumanization, they'll say is wrong. We've got to make it so that word becomes into everyday parlance. We need to be rehumanizing, and it means we have to have references to how we're going to become human. I remember meeting Igbo, my own heritage is Igbo, and meeting some Igbo parents, and they said, all I want my child to be is a human being. And that's the highest quality you can get. I want him to be a human being. So this is dehumanization requires rehumanization. By the way, the shape you see there, they call that Solomon's knot. And it's like the weft and the wone in weaving. And in this symbol, this will be Neith, the goddess Neith, or the Neteru Neith in Kemet, that which weaves things together, that forms the matrices, that is the womb. So that's the generative power of the female. Bronze expansions. Lonnie Liston Smith did this song, Expansions, in 1974. It's a rehumanization piece. Please go online and check it out, Expansions. Then what I want you to do is take a look at the cover of it. I hate the cover because of I hate it when I see this stretching out, but look in the background and you'll see the Church of Holy Wisdom, Hagia Sophia. And Sophia means wisdom. So Sophia is like I say, you have the Church of Holy Wisdom in Istanbul, or as it used to be, Constantinople. So, and it's right in the background. I've been looking at that cover since 1974. In my book of Dumb, I have to write that I saw the cover because my friend was playing the track through his TV, and I only saw that image 2 years ago. And I've just been looking at it, and go like, oh, damn, look at that. Wisdom, expansions, the feminine, the right hemisphere. Oh my gosh, I've done so. So here's the truth. This is Arthur Schlesinger. Self-knowledge for an individual as well as a nation begins with history. Yeah, and what's interesting, Schlesinger, of course, did a book called The Disuniting of America. Please check that out. The Disuniting of America, where he attacked Afrocentricity, because he was saying that it's not politics, so it was all these politics, because African people were turning around and saying, African Americans are actually saying, no, we need to start looking at our own sense of history. And so when they start to do that, please look at the work of Dr. John Henrik Clarke. And there's also where he debates Mary, last name's gone. She's a Jewish lady who was who wrote a book that was slamming and defaming Afrocentricity. But Dr. Clarke debated her and she had to climb down from it. So please look for that. It is online. If I remember the name, I'll get back to that. The 7 core areas of Maulana Karenga's Introduction to Black Studies are history, religion, sociology, politics, economics, creative production, and psychology. What happened was I realized many people don't want to study history due to their psychology because of the inherent damage that's been done. And please, I said inherent. Yes, it's in her. We inherit things. It is in her. Yeah, in the main. That's our main drive through our mothers. So what happens is we don't want to study history due to our psychology. Because if I do that, I might not like white people. Or if I do that, it might and there's unpleasantness we have to go through. That's why you need to get the work of, and please take the name down, William Cross. If you got William Cross, you go on Robin Walker's sessions. Robin will take you through the stages of nigrescence, which is pre-encounter, encounter, immersion, internalization, commitment. So that's the work of William Cross. So it means that William Cross has studied this phenomenon of how people feel about engaging issues to do with race. Some want to run away, some want to start fighting, some have got these different ideas. So the lineage stratagem, therefore, brings the study of psychology, number 7, to number 1, displacing history to number 2. And that gives us the term psychohistory. Now, I didn't know about psycho. I did this back in about 1990 when we started teaching adult classes, 1991 in Manchester. I started using the term psychohistory, not knowing that Dr. Amos Wilson was using the term in a book called The Falsification of African Consciousness. And of course, psychohistory, he didn't have the term either. It was actually originated by 2 French sociologists. And it was originally put in as part of science fiction. But the idea, this is what psychohistory is. Psychohistory is the science of historical motivations, which combines the insights of psychotherapy with the research methodology of the social sciences. This helps to understand the emotional origin of the social and political behavior of groups and nations, past and present. So I'm afraid I play mischief. I'm also a child of Eshu Elegba, a mischief maker. And when I look at these things to the emotional origins of social behavior of groups and nations, past and present, I like to sort of say to people, what are you doing Black studies for? You don't need Black studies. You need white studies because you need to study the system and culture that's been conditioning you for the last 400 or 1,400 years. And that's one of the things that Dr. Karenga does, is that he says there are 3 forms of Black psychology. There's traditional, reformist, and radical. So he says traditionally is white psychology applied to Black people. Reformist is white psychology with a Black component added. And then radical is Black psychology that refers to Black culture and actually analyzes white culture. So these are people like Wade Nobles, Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Kobe Kabone, etc. These are the different practitioners, Asa Hilliard, all these different psychologists who deal with history as well, psychology and history together. Dr. Patricia Newton, God rest her soul. People like that. So please check their works out and then apply it in the context that what they're doing is referring to African cultural references and analyzing the system. There's if you can get the paper, it's by Wade Nobles. It's something he did back in around 1984. And it's called Black People in White Insanity. Black People in White Insanity. If you can get hold of that, please have a read of it. It was one of our seminal texts, that little mad guy in Manchester, Lance Lewis. We were looking at this kind of material back in the day. Now, Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. Let's get on to some of the need for history. This is a statue of him just down the road from his office in Washington, D.C. And he talks about mind control. He said, when you control a human's thinking, you don't have to worry about their actions. You don't have to tell them not to stand here or go yonder. They will find their proper place and will stay in it. You don't have to send them to the back door. They will go there without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, they will cut one for their special benefit. Their education makes it necessary. Now, it means that conditioning, he understood. He did this in 1933. And he's a founder of Black History Month, which was Negro History Week, which became Negro History Month, then Black History Month, et cetera, et cetera. It progressed and it got through to the point we're at today, even though everybody else seems to have their history months now. We're still waiting for funding to do our own things. Yeah. So it's a very interesting thing about the mindset that we actually have. And so what we do, I just want to tell you quickly. I was in a school in London. A very able Irish descent history teacher told me she was having difficulty with the behavior of several girls in the group, these Black girls. And their behavior had gone off key after the Christmas holidays. So she said, will I come and look at them? Because I deal with culture and behavior. That's my specialism as a cultural engagement specialist. So I said, okay, I'll come through. So I sat there, got my pens out, you know, my notebook and all this business, getting ready for the history class. And what happens, the girls walked in, it was the usual, you know, like, it was he, you know, kind of dynamic, you know. And then they sat down there and they were just sisters, you know, and whatever. And she came in and she dropped the first book on the table. I burst out laughing, stood up, packed up my gear. What was the book? That was the book, Black Peoples of the Americas. And she said, oh, I thought you were going to stay. I said, I don't need to. She said, why? I said, when did you start teaching this part of the curriculum? She said, after Christmas. And I went, aha. So she hadn't actually thought that this particular book, which has a thing called The African Past inside, it has 3 paragraphs on the African past, then goes straight into slavery. She didn't actually think that these Black girls would be sensitized to the enslavement and abuse of Black people. But if she'd been doing that about the history of the Holocaust against European Jews, sure as hell she would have been sensitized. And she kind of went, oh my God. She said, I'm sorry. I said, it's called cognitive dissonance. It's just, you know, if you're not putting, and then there's this thing about, are white teachers comfortable with teaching this? Because they haven't even come to terms with their own oppression. That, for instance, the ending of the 1833 ending of enslavement was as much for ending the conditions, the negative conditions of the working classes in this country, because it's tantamount to enslavement. I'm here in a converted mill. You understand me? White folk they're in a state of enslavement, but they don't know it. They don't acknowledge it as that. So there's some interesting dynamics. This is why they introduced race theory to make sure the division was maintained between Black and white. You don't want the division between rich and poor to be accentuated, because that could be potential trouble. So you keep the division there, Machiavellian principle, you keep people split up. I just want to put that there. And I know some of you may be saying, oh, they haven't been through what we've been through and whatever. Well, I said to you, go read. That's all I said, go read. This place was a mess for the working classes, a real mess. Robot, metropolis. Robot is drawn from an old church Slavonic word, robota, meaning servitude, forced labor, or drudgery. Slave, the word which is also cognates in German, Russian, Polish, and Czech, was a product of the Central European system of serfdom, by which a tenant's rent was paid for in forced labor or service. So I'm saying that transhumanism, does it equal? So this thing of robots. I was talking to my son when he was about 7 years old, and he was talking about, well, robots should be made sensitive. You know, if they were sensitive, then it should have feelings. And I said, you really want a robot to have feelings? Why? So they can suffer? And his head was like, oh, I never thought of that. And so you see, this is why the whole process of enslavement of Africans is very necessary, that we don't understand our brain and our mind, because when we start to roll up, look, I'll just give you an insight of one dude up in Scotland, this guy, Robert Knox. He bought the bodies from Birkenhead, the body snatchers, and he wrote a book called The Races of Men, which was used by Charles Darwin later for the anatomy. He was an anatomist. And he said in this of Races of Men, he said that due to the potential, the power and strength of the African type, he said the African race must be made extinct. It matters little how. So this is what he wrote word for word in his book. This is back in the 1800s. So you see, I look on these things, I go on like, yeah, you're on some things, but the main people stopping us are ourselves at the minute. The main people stopping us is ourselves because we've been conditioned to do so. That's one of the dynamics. Why we have to get hold of our mind. So first observation, this is Henry Dumas, 1934, brother died young, 34 years old, I think. Yeah. So what did he say? The greatest role ever created by Western man is the Negro, and its leading player has been the nigger. So what's a nigger? Someone who's mentally dead. Mentally dead. Even Tupac Shakur tried to change that by using NIGGA, which he said was an acronym saying, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished. Meaning, we have to get going with something instead of, was it? Lazy bones, sitting in the sun, waiting for massa to tell us what to do. So that's a dynamic. Second observation from Frederick Douglass says the following is a statement made by the young Frederick Douglass's slave master as a warning to his own wife. This is what the slave master said to his wife. Learning will spoil the best nigger in the world. Because why? The wife had been teaching the young Frederick to read. Who's stopping our youths reading now? A third observation. I found that to make a contented slave, it's necessary to make a thoughtless one. It's necessary to darken his moral and mental vision as far as possible to annihilate the power of reason. Let me say this. 6 R's, not 3. 6 R's, not 3. 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Left brain, quantifiable, easy to do. Second set of R's you've got to work with your children on is reasoning, respect, and responsibility. You get that? Reading, writing, arithmetic, reasoning, respect, responsibility. If you think parenting is telling your child what to do, you've lost it. You've lost it. You've got to be reasoning with that child. You've got to reason with them. Make them figure things out. Respect, means again. Spec means look and see. They've got to look at something again, see it again, check it again. Get them literate with the media literacy. Get them to watch things, get them to tell the story, get them to do those dynamics so they know what's going on. So that when they start watching shit they're not meant to be watching, there's going to be a moral compass that's put in there. Why do you think that Tupac Shakur did the Thug Life Code? Thug Life, the hate you give little infants. It's everybody, everything. So he built the Thug Life Code with his father and his brother Mutulu, with his stepdad. And what did he do? He was building a moral compass for the gangsters in Los Angeles. A moral compass. And look at that. Go to Ma'at. What's the last form? The 7th aspect of Ma'at is compassion. Compass ion. Compassion. You have to have a moral compass to tell you what's right or wrong. When you find, I always remember when Lady Diana died in Paris in that crash, and people, I was listening to people going like, oh God, she died. She's royalty, right, and all this. And I went, yo, mother deado. How can you be celebrating the death of a mother in the context that it was in? And then when someone's burning a bloody effigy of what was it called, the tower that burned down in West London, we get all upset about that. But we have no consistency with the compassion. You need to be very careful on some shit, especially what we're showing our children. Fourth definition, nigger. Root and definition is this. Latin, Spanish, negra, meaning black. The older Greek term has no color association. Greek, negro, necro means dead. So a nigger is therefore a mentally dead person, a zombie. And you look at certain people and the way that they operate, and they have there's no compassion, there's no connection. So this is some of the deep things that we need to be getting on with. Some basic things with our children and with each other. Checking it when we're saying certain things. Check what's escaping from our mouths. And have a think about, just check yourself before you wreck yourself. Wishing things. You see people talk about karma. Oh, it's bad karma. Oh, this karma, that karma. Do you know about dharma? D-H-A-R-M-A? Dharma, which is creating a better life. Making sure you're consciously doing goodness. Or is it we just start cussing down because we're conscious of our oppression? No, sir, let's go on to a thing. Slave definition. This is the one, Chambers Dictionary. One whose will has lost the power of resistance. One whose will has lost the power of resistance. Your will to do something. Your will to be positive. Your will to be an achiever. Your will, when the going gets tough, you're going to get going. But if you lost it, had a love right here in the palm of my hand, and I lost it. Yes, I lost it. Sorry, that's Teddy Prendergast the whole time laughing at me. So it's like, you have Michael Jackson singing, what was that one? She's out of my life. Yeah. And all of this, I was so cavalier. And the way that it stands, she's out of my hands. Well, think about that, how many times we lose things just through stubbornness on our own attitude. I'm talking practicalities here, guys. I'm not talking about, big histories and whatever. I'm talking about your behind and my behind. So slavery, Slav, slave, identical with the ethnic name Slav. The Slavonic races have been reduced to servile state by conquest. Just let me go. I'm going to jump some of these things. The 8th century or more, the Moorish period, AD 711 to 1492, the original slaves were Eastern Europeans. They were called the Sacaliba in Spain. And you got to remember, when we start praising the Moors and we start talking about, oh yes, we civilized Europe, we did this. Yeah, you pass the information to the very same people. You gave them the know-how that they've run amok on the planet now over the last 4 years. Oh, well done, well done. Keep praising it. Keep praising that thing that we made a rod for our own back. They didn't ask us to invade. And then what did we do? We set the translation schools up, which if you invite me back, I'll do a flow of ancient knowledge. So basically, the Greeks go into Kemet, they name it Egypt, they start downloading all the information. That goes on to the Romans in the Ptolemaic period. And then what happens is the Arabs get hold of that. So these people are in largely desert areas. All of a sudden, they've got these mines and building all kinds of things, the universities and everything else. They go along, that goes into Spain with the Moors. And then the Moors have got translation schools, like the one at Toledo, that when it falls in the 11th century, that the Europeans start getting all that knowledge through Spain and through Italy, through the two Renaissances. And then that's how they start to make their way in the world. So who was it bears the responsibility for that? And then what's this? When the enslaving that they were doing from the 1300s on, as high as Iceland, down Ireland, into Scotland, into Wales and England, and across down into France, Spain, and Portugal, when they were slaving white people and taking them into the North African trade, and we're praising all that. Oh yes, we were hardcore. We did it like Robinson Crusoe. Read the story. He was a white slave in Morocco for 3 years in the story. So that was going on piecemeal. They're not going to teach you about that. They'll sing a song, Rule Britannia, and say Britons never shall be slaves. And then we jump on, oh, this ain't that, oh, slaves, oh, No, they were getting enslaved by the corsairs, by the Turkish and Moorish pirates. They even on Lundy Island, just off the coast of Bristol, in the Bristol Channel, slaving locally. So you see, when we've got that, start to look at some account of it. So I did a slave. So just watch this one. I was down in I was in a school in Amsterdam doing a session there, and I said to these children, look at the word. They say Slaven there. So I said, look at the word slave. So by word, and this is what came up. This is what I did today. Just did this today. So it gives you slavery, and then we go to a bigger, and then by image, guess what's going to come up? So by word, it tells you all about enslavement and the technical aspects of it and whatever. What image is going to come up? So you see what they do here, relief depicting slaves in chains in the Roman Empire at Smyrna in 200 in the Common Era. So what goes on over here, as soon as slave goes onto the image, this is what you'll get hit with, is all African, slave equals African. I talk to many young people, I ask them what nigger means, or I ask them what this means, and they go like black slave, slave. Slave, the word has got nothing to do with black people. It's Slavic, Eastern European. The sooner we mean enslave. I pulled up by a sister in Manchester once. Well, you said slave, Paul. I thought you meant enslave. I thought you should have been using the term enslave. Well, I don't really give a frig about it. It's not to do with us. Am I shouting too loud, by the way? Sorry, sister, if I am. I told you I'm a nice, kind, demure old man. I don't get excited.
Yes, you did say that, but you're getting excited here.
No, it's nothing to do. We've got to cut that thing out. We've got to take it and give it to who it's meant to be for. We've got to get this thing and see what word you're going to use. But we're not Eastern Europeans. That's the bottom line. See, the conditioning that we're in. We're the only people on this entire planet who've been taught to demean and praise our demeanment. I am a bitch, I'm a whore, I'm a gangster, and a thug, I'm a dog. If you can train a people to demean and degrade themselves, you can oppress them forever. You can even program them to kill themselves, and they won't even understand what's happened. So said Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. So the ghetto defined, what does it say? The quarter of a city chiefly knitted to which the Jews were restricted. So there's Niccolo Machiavelli. He's the villain of the piece. He's a Setian, that's it, using the Setian dynamic from Kemet for a lopsided purpose. We have no devil in African traditional culture. They've had interpretations of that, but we do not have that in our cultures. Set is not the Egyptian devil. It is a principle and an action. And there's a brother who I'd love you to invite to talk on that subject called Brother Amon Saba Sakana. He's one of the stalwarts in this here place. And yeah, please have a look at that. You see, Machiavelli said, divide and rule, divide and conquer. And so what happens? Where are the true ghettos in the world today? Where are these places of restriction? I'll show you where they are. They're right there in your brain. It's your ideas, beliefs, and behaviors that keep the restriction on. Oh, we can't do that because of, it's not this, and it's not that. And so we get that restricted behavior, and then it means that we can't do. And that gets passed on to the children. So the historical ghetto, this is what Dr. Clark said, most of the history of African people throughout the world is told through slavery, a short period in our history, considering that we are the oldest of the world's people. So it's historical discontinuity. That's what we're looking at. That is what I designed the timeline for, was to show the continuity. So these are the Sakaliba, by the way. These are the original slaves. So when I'm saying about slavery, these are the people that you deal with, yeah? Sakaliba, S-A-Q-A-L-I-B-A, Sakaliba. They are not us, right? That's a simple thing. I'm going to go through this quite quickly. This is a communication studies model. And what happens is historical interface. What happens is we have the Atlantic Age, and people have been restricted to this historical ghetto called the Atlantic Age. And it's the biggest case of what we call interference in human history, because the transmission, TX, that means transmission, and RX means receive from our past, our ancestors. That's inside us. Now, please remember this. Our ancestors aren't floating around in the sky somewhere. They're in our DNA. They're inside us. We are the living, breathing, walking, talking of every ancestor who's ever lived. They're all inside us. Well, the male genes don't last as long. But the female gene, you know, so next time you're in a church, were you there when they crucified my Lord? Yes, you were. You were there at that time, maybe not at the location, but you had to be there for you to be here now. So this thing about the ancestors, I don't believe in the, you are the ancestors, they're in us now. And they're in our children. But it's whether you can't break the spirit, you can break the intellect that's going to want to connect to that thing. And then when you start to look at, I remember going with Lance one time, I said to Lance, I was held over in London, and I said, yo, Lance, have you seen this big Obia shrine that the white people have? He said, what? The big Obia shrine. They have this massive Obia shrine where they do ancestral worship. And I said, do you want me to take it? And he went, yeah, all right. I took him to Westminster Abbey. And you walk in there, you go, oh, yes, this guy kicked the ass of the Irish. This one, he took over India. This one took over all these people memorialized in a big so-called religious construct. Come on. Come on. So what do we have now? Past to present. So what happens is our ancestry, or what we inherit, our inheritance, they have our bloodline, and like Tony Browder was saying about blood markers being these tombs and temples, etc., of the greats that are behind Sister Shanice there. So what happens is there's a blockage that comes in our psyche, and then when we send it over, the messages get broken up because we don't practice our connectivity with our ancestral role. We don't practice it. We don't welcome it. But you can go into any Chinese takeaway, and in there they'll have the incense burning and their feng shui and everything else that's going on in there. But we don't go to the Indian temples as well, where they have their things going on. But because we've been conditioned, we don't want to do it. So watch this. The four eyes with this is heterosuggestion. Someone comes up with an idea, they build an institution, they influence people with it, people internalize it and become followers of the idea. That's called heterosuggestion. That's a heterosuggestion cycle. If you're taking notes, please take it down. Heterosuggestion. I'll show you one here. Four eyes of belief. So we have something called Christianity. We get a symbol, Peter's fish and a cross or a crucifix. Well, the institution is called church. We'll get Bible teachings and whatever, and then we internalize the beliefs, and then we say we're a Christian. Someone comes along with another one, an idea, let's go again with it, go up with Islam. They give us some symbols. Some Muslims will turn around and say that's not to do with us, but the crescent and the star. The institution becomes the mosque or the schools. Then they got Quranic teachings, and then we've got the beliefs. The beliefs, and they say, I'm now a Muslim. This is so powerful that you can get certain people with actually got mental, it's like they've got a mental kind of deficiency, and they're called Arsenal fans. And they follow Arsenal Football Club, believing it's a good club and everything and whatever. But it's the same, it can be a that kind of thing. But then we can heal them if they want with the right color red of Manchester United, but they don't want to know at the minute. Here's a personal one, autosuggestion. There's the senses, the ears, eyes, skin, nostrils, and tongue, the senses of hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting, and then the audio, visual, tactile, olfactory, and verbal channels. Why is this not taught the children in school? How to meditate, how to shut these things down. So what happens is, these channels bring the information in, and what is supposed to happen is our left hemisphere blocks and rejects using our willpower those things that are not in our interests. But remember, the definition of slave was one whose will has lost the power of resistance. And then information allows you, and we get conditioned. What we're supposed to do is figure out even then whether what we're getting is positive or negative. But in many terms, we suck it down because certain groups are giving it to us, so we just follow it. I say, don't believe a damn word I ever say. You have to check this stuff out for yourself. You have to be there. Like Frantz Fanon says at the end of the book, Black Skin, White Mask, "O my body, make of me a man who always questions." And the word man does not mean male. It's a Sanskrit Indian term that means mind. And in Gothic, it means thought. You'll say, "Oh, it's, oh my body, make of me a mind who always questions." So then it makes sense. Seeking you shall find, asking you shall knock, and the door will be open unto you. So here, this is one of the key things that's been happening to us that keeps us in check. Because we've been taught that God is a good white man and that the evil devil is a black woman. The top one is used symbolically all over, and then we have pictures in our house of what God is the head of this house, the unseen guest at every meal, the silent listener to every conversation. And so what happens is this evil Satan black devil, every time you're displaying the white God, you're saying that the black devil is a female. So once you got images like this, it becomes the power lock. The power lock. So if we go again, I remember a sister came to my house one time. She was saying, "Well, God's black." I said, "How long have you believed that?" And she kind of went, "Oh, about 6 years." I said, "How old are you now?" She said, I'm 40. And so I said, "So for 34 years, you thought God was a gray head or a white man floating in the sky?" And she kind of had to say, "Well, yeah." "Oh, okay." So it's a deprogramming needs to go on. And that's why we need our stuff. Just let me show you this one. So one film that people used to watch and they believe it's like, yes, it's like the absolute word of God. There's a 10 Commandments, 10 Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille's version with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. And I call this Woody Strode, but one nigger in Hollywood. There's only one nigger in Hollywood. So watch this. This is Woody Strode. He's introduced when we first meet Moses as the king of Ethiopia and his sister, right? So the king of Ethiopia, he don't say anything, he just stands there, right? But guess what? Woody's in the film later on, playing a slave. And so if you go to 21 minutes, 45 seconds, we meet Woody Strode and his sister, who looks very fine. And then if we go 2 hours, 48 minutes in, same actor playing the chief slave of Moses' Egyptian mother. So you see, DeMille cast Strode in the 10 Commandments, 1956, as a slave of $500 a week for 5 weeks. Listen to this now. They were unable to find anybody to play the Ethiopian king, so Strode was given that role too. How many people have watched this film? How many generations now have watched this film and have seen this process that it took just 2 hours, 26 minutes and 11 seconds to change a king to a slave? How many black folk have watched that film who were Christianized, who were Christian and watched it like, it's the word of God? And I went to see that when I was about 4 years old at the Royal Cinema in Blackburn. And it's like the parting of the Red Sea, man, that was special effects, man, back in the day. So how many, just dwell on that for a second. A king to a slave. And you people who've been watching that, what subliminal message has been hitting us for how long? Wow, these people, man, these people. So up from slavery, post-traumatic slave syndrome, Dr. Joy DeGruber, I got a picture of Dr. Patricia Newton, Setmet Jehuti, because she was putting things post-traumatic slavery disorder in 1995. So not syndrome, disorder. And she chose disorder because it's the opposite, it's isfet. We have ma'at and isfet. So she was putting the disorder in the sense of isfet. The reason for healing, what did Ivan Van Sertima say? He said, let no one say why you're looking back to the architecture, ships and metallurgy and achievements of the old world. Surely these things happened thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. No, no, no. This is the universe, space-time continuum. What happened 10,000 years ago and 10 minutes ago have the same relevance as they occupy the same space and time in consciousness. As powerful as you are, you can trip back to any time in your life, trip forward in your imagination. Remember the word imagination says jinn. Jinn means spirit. So your spirit can fly where wherever you need to go. Go listen to some Bee Gees. Spirits having flown. So your spirit can fly anywhere. Where do you think the Kemites were putting wings on dynamics, especially on the females, the feminine mind, the female mind, the feminine mind? Only the women have the wings. So why do you think they were telling you that sense of freedom? Why do you think they take you away from that and make you think more left brain? Because your freedom lies in that right brain. That's your Akashic records. He said, this is what he says. Nobody who thinks that the oldest traceable ancestor they can point to was a slave. Nobody who thinks that can be anything but a sick man or woman. This is why Tony Browder, when he does his tours down in Kemet, in Egypt, looking for Kemet, he calls it the Kemetamorphosis. That we go through a change in there. So we go through a change by those experiences that you get by connecting with the Holy Land. Those original Holy Lands. And so what he said, inherited trauma, producing DNA change. This is what Pat Newton was talking about back in 2004. And she said that the stress and trauma is stored in what she called the red nucleus. Now, it's now known as epigenetics. So people are talking about epigenetics, generational trauma being passed down, inherited. And so this is some of the dynamics. When you're looking at that timeline, you can look at it and say, wow, I've got this power coming down. But wait a minute, someone's going to actually be doing some programming with us. And as Tony Browder once said, he said the hardware is all okay, but the software has been tampered with. So as you've got if you've got a virus in your computer, you have to go get that out. Antiviral stuff. And then hopefully what you'll do as well is get the blocking mechanism so it don't get in there in the first damn place. Dr. Richard King wrote a book called The African Origin of Biological Psychiatry. This is what he said. The ancient Egyptian knew the relationship of the pineal gland to the higher states of consciousness more than 4,000 years before its rediscovery by modern biological psychiatry. The concept of an African origin of biological psychiatry is based on a review of the material evidence related to the Eye of Horus, or Heru, found in the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. And that's what I call the third eye, the vulture and the cobra. And remember, Tutankhamun wore the vulture over the right hemisphere and the cobra over the left hemisphere, which is why it's the first page on the timeline. We're only going on the first page tonight with this.
Wow.
Watch this. You've got the word jinn and gen, the word origin and beijin. They are talking about the spirit. You got the word virgin and vagina as well, which is another dynamic, because that's how we manifest through the gateway into this life. Like Dr. Ben had a book called Heaven is Between the Black Woman's Legs, and he's talking about goddess Nut and the rise of that. I don't know if you know this, that in the symbolism, from the vagina of Nut rise a lotus blossom, and then the sun rises from the lotus blossom. And that's why the smell of vagina today is called the flora, the vaginal flora. That's why you got the term twat, meaning the duat or tuat is the underneath, is the underworld. So even your everyday speech to, oh my gosh. You see, so Genesis, the genes is generations. Those words, every time you see Jin and Jen, it's talking about the spiritual power being passed on. So these people know how to program us to think in negative ways, etc., or weakened ways. So the Library of Congress, this is in Washington, D.C. What have they got there? This is the Blatchfield mural. This is the artist who did it. And this is on the reading room. This is a reading room. And on the ceiling, you see the coral mural. The coral mural. Right in the center, they have the mother, the female, right in the center, in the top of the dome. They know this stuff. We call this ma'at. We call this aset. We call this neith. We know this in our hearts of hearts. But our mind has been conditioned that women are weaker, the weaker sex, and all of this business. So this is showing the influencing cultures and times that influence USA. And what does it say the first one is? is that Egypt, the source of written records. But you've got to be careful on that because it says Egypt is the source. It doesn't say Kemet. So they're tracing it back to when the European world took over Kemet and called it Egyptus, called it Egypt. And you'll see on the timeline, there's a yellow bar. The same time was what they call the high culture of ancient Greece, Hellenistic culture, is exactly the same time they were in Egypt, 322 BC to 31 BC. It's exactly the same time. So you must not prevent that was a download. These written records that they got were a download from that. But let me say this to you. They got the knowledge. They got the knowledge without the wisdom. So there's an old thing, it says you got wisdom that turns into knowledge, and the knowledge turns to information, information turns to data. Now we're in a data-driven society. But the original wisdom they never picked up on. You know of this, Diana. I know people have been there. I've been putting this on the timeline from time. The Oscar and Tar, the creator, the creator, the craftsmanship. So instead of admitting it, this is what I did. I was trying to get a few of the guys to do filming. There's people like Trevor Hakim. Trevor Hakim, by the way, he's the Don. Anybody doing film breakdowns, Trevor's the Don, right? I doff my cap to him. And I'm trying to get Trevor and Dr. Les, Twilight, Andrew Muhammad, is to talk to them about doing critical film analysis, critical thinking, analyzing, ruthlessly analyzing film, etc., so that we can connect back to and find our way. So when we're looking at it, we will see ourselves instead of that other people's interpretation of what was ours. So the money in advertising, just let me show how are we doing with time? I can't see any clock here.
Oh, right. Well, we are, you'll never believe it, 15 minutes away from the top of the hour, the top of the second hour. You have just been flowing. Someone in the chat earlier on said, can we have him on for 4 hours? And I was laughing, but you could easily keep going for 4 hours.
Well,
normally we just do 2 hours, and I normally allow time for Q&A, for comments from the chat to come in. We've only got 15 minutes left.
Let me land this.
If you want to stay longer, if you're available to stay longer, obviously not for 4 hours, but we can go beyond, or we can refresh and just have a whole a session which is just a discussion, because you've covered so much. I mean, I've got loads of questions that, and I'm sure, and I can't even answer all my questions, otherwise the people in chat won't get their questions in. But let me go over to you, and we would love to have you back. You've touched on so many points that we need to dig deeper on, and we would welcome you back to give you more time as well. So let me hand it back to you, and I'll leave it to your judgment.
Okay, so what I've done here, I call this the money relationship in advertising. This is one of the a key point about enslavement. They're talking about the enslavement coming out of that upfront slavery. Check the following logo examples. So if we check these logos, I'm sure people out there have got some of these. Like I drive VW and I wear Adidas. That's my two. I restrict my addictions to logos to a certain quality, then that's one thing. So how much do the above companies pay us to advertise their products? So usually unless it's a sponsorship, it's nothing. And say, in fact, we pay them. This is the funny thing. So what do you call a person who works for free and has no rights? What did the slave master mark the slave with to show ownership? And we buy these products from.
Yeah.
So I always ask people, how do we stop being slaves by wearing these logos? And people say, make your own, or make our own brand, or make our own. I'm going like, well, that's long, I said, what you do, you buy shares in the company. You buy one share, you're working for yourself. And that means we have to get financially literate. We may not agree with the system and the society and whatever, filthy capitalism and whatever. But I think we're going to be going into a time now where we're going to have to be very sharp financially, economically, and whatever. Because if this government remains and the new Labour government comes in with the same kind of policies, there's going to be, have you noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been noticing recently the number of African Caribbean centers closing, programs being cut back, etc., etc., etc.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the things are coming full on. So this money relationship, we're probably going to have to get something going. Kemetic identity in the tomb of Ramesses III. We've got to get this thing out that they're always trying to make out that Africans were slaves in Kemet, but the Kemites were Africans. So, and this is one of the things. If you read a book, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, he says that there's a chapter called the mulatto problem. And it is talking about the fact that the rulers started mixing with other people. So the ruling classes have changed, but the black masses are still there. So these are some very interesting dynamics that we need to get into. These are prisoners of war. The two big ones, they're from the temple of Abu Simbel. And yeah, there's a difference between the Assyrians and the Nubians. So let me finish with this, because this is the golden mask that's on the first page. So Tutankhamun's golden mask. I actually saw it for the first time in Cairo when I was at the museum, and I was just like going like, this is made how long ago? And think about it, he was an inconsequential boy king. He wasn't one of the major supers. So if they're doing this level of artwork craftsmanship for a boy king who ruled a very short time, what would Set I have, or Ramesses II, or what kind of stuff have they got? Have they found? Is it in their possession that they're not showing us? They've got the bodies, they've got the mummies. So where's the stuff? Well, let me put this to you. When you're looking at the vulture and you're looking at the cobra, you're looking at the functions of the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And what I want you to do, please check up on the brain hemispheres, because when I come again and I start to look at, if I come again, I start to break out that thing of the timeline. I don't want you looking at the timeline, go, oh, look at what we did in the past or whatever. I want you to fully understand the structure of the timeline. I want you to understand how our minds got messed with, and what our minds were capable of building. I want you to be clear on that. So you got the vulture and the cobra. And so when you see the cyclic and you see the linear, do you remember, have you seen the Vitruvian Man with Da Vinci? The naked man, and he's got his arms out, and then he's got his arms up as well. There are two shapes. The arms straight out, the cross, that's going into the square. And then go to the arms out and legs are out and the arm like a star jump, that goes to a circle. Go to the center of the square, it goes to the genitals, which is what we manifest in that world, into the world. Go to the center of the circle and it goes to the navel, which is where we came from the universe through our mothers into this life. The Kemites showed it as the vulture that flies in circles. And then this power dressing, if you see, usually they'll show you the cobra on over the third eye, right? What's the cobra today? It's the necktie. So they call that power dressing. Notice that women are usually not, you don't need to wear that after you leave school. But then what do you have? You have the head of the cobra. You're supposed to tie from the throat down to your sacral chakra. And then you remember you've made a circle and a straight.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom.
Yes.
They've got the symbols going on even today. So the brain-mind process, this is where the gathering of the information in your gene pool. This is your ideas. And then here is a manifestation from the inside to the outside, like a tear coming from the eye. The cobra drops to the ground, but then it raises up and times its strike. It even has the white crown of Upper Kemet and the red crown of Lower Kemet, showing the connectivity between the mind and the earth, nature, the country. That's why I'll finish with this. Is Dr. Asa G. Hilliard. He said that from the work of Schweller de Lubitz, the French genius, that he said that there were 5 aspects to the ancient Kemetic education system. Number 1, unity with nature. Number 2, unity between the self and the nation, which is me, we, as Muhammad Ali said. Next, it's the development of social responsibility. Then the development of your character. And finally, the development of spiritual power.
Wow.
And those aspects go right across African traditional culture. We've got all of it there within us if we choose to make the moves to connect with ourselves and do that dynamic to rise up, to step up. But we've got healing to do. We've got self-control to do. Yeah, we've got the reading to do, the listening to do, the actions to be taken as well. I'm sorry for going over time, and I'll stop there.
Oh, wow. No problem whatsoever. No apology needed. Wow. You know, the last slide was as powerful as the rest of the presentation. And wow, it's deep. I mean, you've just blown me away, to be honest, with the depth of the information that has come through there. And as you said, it was just the one page, just the first page you were dealing with in your scroll. Wow, 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 just the first page. So there's just so much more to go. And we would be delighted, definitely honored to have you go into more detail. I mean, there was so much controversial stuff in there as well. Wow, wow, wow. You talked about the fact that, you know, we have got to come to terms with the role of some of us as Africans that called ourselves Moors. And, you know, we have to learn from their mistakes. Because as we talk about rising and as we talk about going forward as a race of people, if we don't learn from our mistakes, what's going to happen? We'll make the same mistakes again. So we'll have to, as was said, deal with some uncomfortable truths. That was said in the chat there as well. And what you said about our ancestors being inside of us, you know, and our ability, you know, and then you ended off by talking about our spiritual powers, one of the lists that you gave out about our potential spiritual powers. Wouldn't that also be the power to be able to go back to hear from our ancestors through maybe meditation or through that spiritual process so that we could connect with history and what happened in the past? Because as you said, when we talk about our history, it's only so that we can be reminded of our greatness and the great heights from which we have fallen from, and therefore the great heights that we have got to get ourselves back to. So it's just reminding us, isn't it, of our former greatness. Now, let me go over to the chat and not take up too much of your time here. So family, if you've got any questions, if you've got any points, you know, drop them in the chat. And yeah, let's see what we've got here. So Brother Wilford, rise up, good to have you in the house. He says, perfect knowledge, perfect presentation. Thank you. And Ayola says, why is it controversial? Why is what controversial? Jusinikini sorry, apologies for pronouncing your name wrong if I have. He said, can he come back as he needs some more time? How about he do the next couple of weeks, as it's so interesting, educational and enlightening. You know how long I had to take to book this busy man well in advance, but we will definitely be asking him to look at his diary. So much stuff to come back on. Plus, he talks about going into the flow of ancient knowledge as well. So we can look at how our ancient knowledge actually flowed through all the different nations, how we lost it, basically. We need to learn from that as well. Icon Bay, African make lots of mistakes to sell their people. We all have good and bad in our nation. Yeah, I mean, we are talking about Africans. We're talking about Moors, we're talking about ourselves, we're talking about us as Africans. And, you know, they were just, you know, those who have maybe at the higher echelons, who thought that they were over and above, lords over and above the ordinary people, and didn't care for the ordinary people, similar to the leaders that we've got of today, you know, selling out their people. But yeah, we have to learn from our history. I'm from Bay. The mind is depicted as white and the ground is red or brown or black. You choose the mindset you want to carry with you. Okay. Let me see. Any questions, anybody? I come back. Oh, needs to stop calling yourselves slaves, descendants. See how powerful words are. Yes, it was said in the chat, we need to refer to ourselves as prisoners of war. Prisoners of war. Judges picking up Paul, who said Africa is the Holy Land, not the so-called Middle East. Yes, rise up, brother Jeff. Definitely, Asra, we all agree with you on that. Any questions? Lots of points. That movie used to have us so messed up with the emotion, which is what we must learn to temper. Let me scroll down and see if we've got any actual questions. So if you've got any questions for the brother, please drop it in the chat. So Armiman says, I just came in on the end. Oh, you missed so much. Came in on the end of what was another good, make me forward back to our former greatness. Absolutely. Captives of Rome. Okay, yes, we are prisoners of war, captives of Rome. Who's the troll that's back in the house? Tuka Pamoja. I might have missed that one. So someone say, Mr. IC3 is saying, what about race and the mixed race? What are you missed the beginning of the show. Is that a topic you want to talk about? That is very much linked to.
Sorry, sis.
Yes,
I absolutely. What I always say that when people talk about the mixed race issue, I love it. I love it because I get sometimes I get full black people saying to me, "Oh, well, you can't talk about this because you're on the mixed race." And I said, "Well, think about what I'm doing with just 0.5. If I'm operating like this at 0.5 and I'm leaving you standing, whatever you want to think about or do, whatever. Think about you fully melanated people, what you'd be capable of.
How much more we could
yeah,
be
but
doing.
therefore, I'm saying you better show and demonstrate it to me. Don't be coming off with some disrespectful shit and then want to go on, oh, yeah, well, you only did that. I said, look, my mother's from Horton, England. My mother's, where she was actually born is about maybe, 15-minute drive from here, right? My father, I've never met him, but he's from Owerri, Imo State, Nigeria. That's where my name is from. He started gathered there. And then when I did my African ancestry, I did ancestry.com, they said, yeah, Eastern Nigeria. I'm 50-50 breed, as I like to say, 50% European, 50% African. But then I found out that I'm from 4 different groups in, check this now, Eastern Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Congo. So they go across those places. Igbo as in IGBO, right? So I pay respect to my ancestors by the work I do. And I once got told, a friend of mine got into some trouble in the media racially based stuff, and some really brave young Africans who were chatting their things about how there. And I was there saying to them, look, I'll tell you what, I've actually gone toe to toe in pubs with bottles and glasses and fighting guys, fighting white dudes. I was around with the British National Front, that British National Party in Blackburn, on the thing, toe to toe on the street as well. So what have you done? Because half of the young guys around today, someone look at them and it's like, oh, it's racist. And they say, you know, it's all that kind of business. They're not gone to the hardcore. They're not going, I'm 63 years old. I don't have to apologize for what I've done. I was working in Full Sutton prison. I had a death threat put on me by a British National Party activist in there, that if I went in, I was going to get shanked by some lifer. You understand me? So what did I do? I got to my shrine in the morning. I did my traditional prayers of protection and whatever, and I went down there. And I've still been going there. I was working with the gangs in Moss Side, in Manchester, when it was Gunchester. Yeah? What have you done? What have you done? Don't tell me what your theory is. What have you done? And I've got my track record. I don't have to justify, but I just say what I've done. But if you want to bring in the thing about, oh, well, okay, I should have done half the job then, innit? I should have just done half. That's it.
That's interesting.
I'm taking Bob Marley back. I'm taking Bob Marley back.
No, you can't have him back.
I'm taking, because it's really funny because.
No, it's interesting that you went on to that side of mixed race and the mixing and the race mixing. But in your presentation, you actually talked about something that we do need to look into as well as the people, and that is the impact of our leaders mixing with, the other invading tribes, creating a whole new race, the Arab race, who then, turn around and hated their ancestors and basically enslaved the children of their ancestors. And we do need to look at that. So that's where my mind went to when I picked up that question there in terms of the race, because there's a lot of history, untold history there that we need to home in on as well.
And you need to also check things out. I mean, I was at a PACM event years ago, and it's on miscegenation. And the sister read out 12 achievements, and she said that if Black people knew more about these achievements, they wouldn't be wanting to be in relationships with other races. But I got the last comment in on the light, and I said I applaud your thing. I said, well, I'm a product of miscegenation. I don't think I'm missing anything. And I said, what I've got here is that you actually give 12 Black achievements, and actually 7 of them were actually mixed race guys. So I said, so what are you actually claiming, and what are you not? And then it's like Muhammad Ali, who was the son, of a mixed race woman. So when we get into this thing, you got in Jamaica, you got out of many one people. And then it's an interesting dynamic that when we talk about traditions, we talk about pouring libation. You're supposed to pour libation to your ancestors, not just your Black ancestors, but your ancestors. And that is one of the things that you are the actual healing of those racial divisions that were put in by Master and by these people in the past. You are the living embodiment of that. Wow. And so I remember when Chief Adelikon, every time I was traveling the country with him. So remember, this is a high-ranking Ifa priest. And he's always saying to me, Mr. Obina, I need to meet your mother. And I said, my mother? I said, she's an old white lady. Well, you need to, no, I must meet her. And I'm there saying, so I took him on the way to Liverpool one time. And he was there in his full regalia. And his wife's there in her full regalia. They're in matching outfits. And they're talking to my mother. And, we're talking, and it's tea and cake and all of this business. And then I said, Baba, we've got to go now because we've got to reach Liverpool on time. We'll have to leave. He stood up. He took off his hat. He went on his hands and knees crawled across to my mother's feet, put his head on her feet in traditional prostrate, right? And then he stood up, put his hand on her heart. He said, I salute you, mother of Mr. Obinna. My mouth was on the carpet, tasting the carpet. I was like, huh? What is he doing? And it took me from Blackburn to turning off the M6 onto the M62 to Liverpool to speak. I said, Baba, what was that about? And do you know what he said?
For bringing you into the world.
He said, is your mother now? That's all he said.
Is your mother.
Is your mother now?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you think about it. To become pharaoh, you had to marry into the lineage. If you got, there's one thing I was going to put, a plug and a socket. A plug and a socket. You call that the male fitting and the female fitting. Where does the power lie?
When they come together.
No, the power is held in the female fitting, in the socket. The male is functional out there. That's why Chehuti has got the head of an ibis, because the ibis looks inside itself to connect with the thing. That's why you got the seat of knowing. Know is with Ma'at. The Chehuti writes in a ledger, and that's the external coming in and the internal coming out. That's why you've got knowledge. The word knowledge reflects the relationship between the feminine and the masculine, or Ma'at and Chehuti. So let's cut the shit. You know, it's like you want to go into this thing and start going where it's going to have to go to, instead of playing the game of the dividers. Divide and conquer.
As we, you know, last strong, we actually had a session that looked at race mixing. So it's really interesting that it's come up again, you know, today. And I suppose it will always keep coming up. And we, I think, all acknowledged in that session last strong that the race mixing has brought about its gems, and we cannot, you know, overlook that. And you know, some gems were actually named, and I think your name would definitely be one of those gems, along with Bob Marley and some of the others that were actually named. And it has also brought about in our history some evils. For example, you know, the 1500 years of Arab enslavement. You know, we brought that on ourselves. We've got to recognize that. You know, from creating, you know, that race that wasn't educated to respect and to, you know, have respect for their forefathers. You know, this is where we are. We are where we are today because of a lot of mistakes that we've made along the way. I mean, the biggest one, I mean, we've got the image of all these wonderful African kings behind us. But look how the throne ended up. Look in whose hands the throne actually ended up. And as a result, look where we ended up as a people. But take nothing away from the gems that we have in our community. And as my brother said, he's putting us to shame. We've got 100% melanin, and he's firing on half, 50%. And look at the levels. Look at the levels.
Middle class. Watch this. I always say, if melanin was money, I'd be middle class. Some of you might be upper middle class. You'd be upper middle class. Then you see the blue black people are melanin millionaires and billionaires. And yet the poverty, the people with the most poverty, are defining beauty. I've talked with. I can tell. I talk to, because of my age now, my experience. I talk to sisters and I see them and they're uncomfortable in their skin. I'm not saying okay because they're measuring themselves to miss 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, and you should be looking at this thing now. But thankfully now there's a growing number of fashion houses who are making clothes built for African women. And you know, and I'm shameless in some of the things I'll say in admiration, but I'm saying I'm supposed to who am I, sir? What was it? I was down in Manchester doing a session, and a young brother said to me, he goes like, I said, any questions? I always start with questions usually. I said, yeah, any questions? And he says, how can you be teaching this? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you're mixed race, isn't it? How can you be teaching this? And I was going to say to him, yeah, you're a Caribbean. So watch this. As one guy said to me, called Andrew Leacock, Leaky Fresh, we were in a meeting, right? And he wanted to know if I can handle myself in like if I was online and someone comes and starts verbalizing, right? And he said, and he just said to me, he goes like, oh, how can you be, this is what Leaky said. He said, how can you be talking Black history? He said, you're half caste. And I said, half caste, that's interesting. I said, well, my mother's from Horton, Horton in Lancashire. My father's from Owerri, Imo State, Nigeria. I said, which bit of wood did your family float across to the Caribbean on? Because you don't know where the friggin' hell you're from.
Oh, that's below the belt as well.
No. You want to go there? I'll go there.
Yes, sir. The
I had to
boxing gloves have come off, family. If you want to go there, this is
I had to talk.
toe to
I had to
toe
talk
with
to
the
one
National
brother.
Front and
I had to talk to one brother. He was a Ghanaian brother, and he was carrying on with himself, going about half caste, can't be trusted because of whatever. And it was coming by message. And then I said, well, what about my son? Because he's three quarters. But yeah, he's okay, but a half caste isn't. So, and I was with Dr. Les Henry. I was with Les on his radio show, Sunday radio show. And I just said to him very simply, I said, well, look, I stand by my record. I said, people can say, what have you done and whatever. But as far as I'm concerned,
and
this
as far
guy.
as we're concerned, you're one of our gems, okay?
No, but watch this. No, this is a simple thing. I said to Dr. Les, this is a simple thing. The brother's just been insulting. So what he needs to do is step outside, and then we can have a ruck on the cobbles, as we used to call it. Go to the cobbles. Because if you want to keep insulting people, we're not in the age. You see, some of us are back from the days where what we said about, we said to. And it's not this kind of bravery on a keyboard.
That's right. That's right.
So
let me jump back to the chat. So yeah, Icon Bay says, Paul, you are the real to the steel, to the deal. Love your truth, bro. Okay, rise up for that. Let the truth set us free. Iola says, yes, we did meet your mother. We met your mother today through you. You're right. Spot on, Iola, for real. We met your mother and we met your father today. Gary is saying, big up yourself, Paul. I come back again. Brother Paul, you are the realest presenter. Sister Shane, you have ever bring on this platform. Love you, bro. Enough love. As well coming at ya, and I think it's important to absorb the love to the extent that you absorb criticism, okay? Because sometimes we take on criticism easier and quicker than we take on and embrace the love. Two Cup Emoji says, yes, Paul has done the rounds for years. I can't agree, enough big up, enough hand clap there, real them brother Paul, real. And Armin man is saying, don't justify yourself to no one. You are an African. Ricky is saying, tell them, brother Paul, big up yourself. Enough hands going up as well. So enough big up in the chat all the way through, my brother. You know, people have been listening to you for a long time. And Amin said, Bob Marley said, wherever I am an African. See there in you. Yeah, so lots of real beautiful comments there, just embracing you for being you, for doing the works, for being the African that you are. And at the same time, we, you know, like the chief did as well, we give respect to your mother who had to do what she had to do. Why? To bring you into this world. Why? So that you could do what you needed to do, change the lives of probably thousands and thousands of people. through your works. Your timeline, I'm sure, you know, has inspired thousands of people to, one, become more knowledgeable about their history, secondly, to research their history, thirdly, to gain more confidence in self. And, you know, those who were here from the beginning will know, you know, what inspired you to do the works that you did. And I think, you know, when you were going through, you didn't know why you were going through. You were going through because this was inside of you and needed to come out. And had you not gone through what you went through during your early years, this, I doubt, probably would never have come out of you. So sometimes, you know, we don't understand why, you know, we end up where we are, doing what we're doing, for example. But my family, look what the blatant racism and the hatred that he got throughout his early years because of that bit of black that he's got in him. Yeah, and that's all they saw, you know, the black that he had in him. But look what came out as a result of it, you know, thousands and thousands of years of our history here. Yeah, for not just us, but for everyone and anyone who needs it to feel empowered, because, you know, the wider community suggests that we don't have a history. Right up, there's so much. I didn't even get into the gin that you talked about, but, you know, we're going to have to leave that for another show. You know what? I've got a big one to drop on you, but I mean, I need to drop it on you probably outside the chat, because I've yet to, outside the show, because I've yet to drop it. And, you know, when I drop this one, I need some greats like yourself to overs, you know, where I'm coming from on this one. But you see the gin?
Right.
You know, the power of the jinn that you talked about, the spirit, you know, how when we raise to that higher echelon, the highest level of our spirituality, how we can fly and we can, you know, see through our third eye, etc. You turn that round. Spell it backwards, G-I-N, turn it round, N-I-G, N-G, the energy, the N-I-G that we get from the sun. I've got something on that for you that is in one of these books here, not one of these that I showed you, but I'd love to share with you the pages and for us to have a debate on that, my brother Paul. Wow, wow, wow. I haven't even bought it yet. It's just too much of a knockout punch. And you know, the timing has to be right, you know, for some stuff. Yeah, that's the way it is. Wow, family, what a session we have had today. Our brother, we've kept him here well over time. We thank you so much, my brother, for giving us your time, and we certainly hope that you will, you know, be coming back. I'd love to get some dates in the diary with you, so that we can delve deeper into some of the other pages on your timeline. You know, how many pages are there?
There's around about 22
sessions. That was just one session from one page on the timeline. I think we need to do a series. Maybe we should book you for a program, and you know, have our wonderful viewers make donations to you for your time to deliver, because, you know, our brothers just delivered what, a two and a half hour session, but that session, yeah, involves what, how many decades of learning? Probably 4 decades, 40 years of studying and research and learning, and plus another 10 years of agony of what you went through, you know, to get the realization of who you were, so your greatness could be brought out of you. And so, you know, family, you know, we're going to have to start looking at how we can pay our greats. Okay, so those obviously who don't want to make a contribution, that's okay. You don't have to come to those sessions, you know, but those of you who want to value, you know, and show your appreciative love of the works of my guests, you know, I can't keep asking them to come back for free. Okay, I can't keep doing that. There are some gems in our community who will come out for free, and some who will come back for free. But if we want to continue with this learning, if we want to, you know, we've got to show and value the works for what it deserves. So, okay, let me see some of the comments on what I've said so far. Paul needs to offer no apology. Ayola, info, how to contact him, please. How can people contact you should they want to do so? Thanks again, Sister Shanice. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for your work. You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the big ups and the thanks as well. And I'd love to have your comments or views about having some private sessions, yeah, where you are able to communicate verbally as well with our guests in a private settings where you make a contribution as well, and give me an idea what your thoughts on that are. Yeah, I've got no idea how much. You can suggest in the chat, you know, how much you think these sorts of private sessions should cost, because, you know, to be honest, I'm booked right up until the end of September, going into October. If I have another day, a different day, I want it to be on another level where we can reward our guests. Okay, so it's up to you. It's up to you, family. It really, really is. Okay, so let me give our wonderful esteemed brother the opportunity to close out.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
over to you.
Sorry,
That's
you.
funny.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, no.
And what I was going to say to you, I've done notes of the PowerPoints, so I'll send all I've already got them on my phone, so I just need to get them sent to you so you can distribute those out. And to raise money for your show, if you just give a contribution for the notes. So
Oh, wow, that's so kind of you. Hey, thank you so much, you know, but you know that contribution will go right back at you. So let me put my email in the chat, and then if you want to get a copy of the notes to go along with this fabulous presentation, oh my days, then make sure you email me, and I will get that over to you. Okay, family, don't look for me to do it tomorrow, though. At some point in time, it will come your way. All right.
I've sent them now, so you've got them on your WhatsApp.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so more work for me to do, as if I'm not busy enough. But you know, it's a pleasure to provide for our community. So what's happened here? Sorry, I have lost my page. I need to go back. Let me, apologies for that. I've lost my YouTube page, and I needed to get to it so that I could put, let me just tell you my email address. It's Starlight Global Management at Gmail, or is it Yahoo? Sorry, at yahoo.com. So it's Starlight Global Management at Gmail. Sorry, at yahoo.com. Okay, so I was clicking behind so that I could get to send you it as a message, and I've clicked off the show, the live show on YouTube. So my apologies for that, but I'll put my email address in the description underneath this video. Okay, and so for those of you who want to get a copy of the PDF and the notes, just get in touch with me and give me your email contact details, and you can make a small contribution. My brother, give me your bank account details or your PayPal details afterwards, and you can make a contribution and get those. Okay, so I want to thank you so much, my brother, for the wealth of information that you've brought, you know. And basically I'd wrap up today's session by saying, family, we've got a brain, the right side of our brain, a powerful brain. We've got to use it. We are firing way below our capabilities, okay? And we've got to tap into our brain. We've got to start applying some critical thinking. We've got to start realizing the potential of our greatness. Just look at the kings behind and just begin to think about what they managed to accomplish during their times. And had they not had the foresight to leave for us as a testimony of their greatness. Maybe we would not know today just how great we really are and the greatness that resides inside of us. But it's pointless it just sitting there. We've got to do all that we can do to bring it out. And so let's start using our brain and applying the knowledge and the wisdom that we have been getting strong after strong instead of weak, you know, I'm going to say strong after strong from powerful guests like our brother Paul Abina. You know, let's not allow all of their decades of hard work and their efforts to pour their knowledge and wisdom into us be in vain. So do whatever it is you need to do to bring out the skills and talents that you've got inside of you, and make sure that you're not just doing for self, but you're doing it for the upliftment and the advancement of the entire race. Rising up each and every one of you. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Voodoo power, everybody. More love, more strength, more voodoo. Thank you, Brother Paul.